a person being in a relationship but still having that feeling of loneliness.
But I've seen in my sessions and around me also that even people in relationships can still feel incredibly lonely. So
सोशल मीडिया का aspect जो है that is also somewhere or the other um, increasing, intensifying this feeling of maybe left out where the loneliness starts.
yes, I think this is something that's called the comparison trap. What we have.
To hear हम सब like excited है आपके insight सुनने के लिए about the topic which is very relatable to the young adults mostly, which is loneliness. uh, so Mitali, before we start the conversation मुझे आपसे ये सवाल करना है कि how is it like how are you and how is it going as a mental health professional so far?
Thank you for asking. I'm doing good, and it's just like my early phases. I just started a private practice. It's called Mending Minds Therapy, and so I'm running that. I as you mentioned, I also work with mainly with young adults, and yeah. So what I work with is like mostly relationship issues, self-esteem issues, stress. So most of my cases and the work that I do come from these things. So yeah, that's about me.
So ये सारे issues जो आपने mention किए, the things which you address in your counseling sessions. So how did you start specializing in loneliness and with young adults and overthinking? So was it because you saw issues of loneliness more frequently?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both because like before even therapy, I started taking therapy. I was more interested in these things. I used to like in my theory, I used to study about, attachment styles and relationship. So yeah, my interest was, I was keen on this issue, and even my clients. So like they are young adults. So most of the issue that I saw in my clients were from this fear only, loneliness, whether it is just being lonely or even if they are in a relationship, still being feeling lonely. So yeah.
सिंस ये वैलेंटाइंस मंथ है तो हम देखते हैं काफी सारे रील्स रिलेटेड टू सेलिब्रेटिंग वैलेंटाइंस डे, पीपल गोइंग ऑन डेट।
Yeah.
वो एक एस्पेक्ट हो गया, बट एट द सेम टाइम दूसरा एस्पेक्ट है कि अबाउट the single people who are single. So mostly we find reels related to sad, the sad situation of a single person. Maybe it is a funny or sarcastic reel or something which
Yes.
is meant out of comedy, but deep down uska motive yahi hai ki the sad story of feeling lonely. तुम like do you think कि such festivals or celebrations intensifies or increases the loneliness aspect in individuals?
Yeah, definitely. Like, you see it all around you on social media. If you go to a store, the decorations are like, they have hearts all around. If you see like social media, they're happy couples, you can see them. And, just and I think it's kind of signaling to your brain that the journal message is that you should also be doing the celebration, right? That this is something special that you should be doing. So, and if you're not doing it, it feels like you are missing out on something. I think it's really normal to feel that way that, if you are a single person and during Valentine's Day, this kind of intensifies a lot more.
I totally agree. और ये सब relate कर पाते हैं कि looking at what's happening around in our environment. Comparison is something which is so common and so normal. And so talking about, comparison, do you think कि social media का aspect जो है, that is also, somewhere or the other, increasing, intensifying this feeling of maybe left out, where the loneliness starts, the feeling of loneliness starts.
Yes, I think this is something that's called the comparison trap. What we have, so you start seeing other people's experiences, whether on social media, you really know that if it's real or it's just curated for that social media to compare, your own life with that. So even if you were feeling okay before, after seeing those things, you suddenly feel like something is missing. So definitely social media is playing a part in that. But I think that's where it is very important to ask yourself is that, is this feeling that you're having of loneliness, missing out, is it based on reality or is it based on an expectation that's been put? So these expectations are also something which is, culturally like conditioned into ourselves. Like, relationship equals happiness. So you have that thing that that love should look a certain way, that if you're not a part of this celebration, that something is wrong. But is it really true for you, or is it something that society has made you believe? So I think this is where two types of FOMOs come, is the fear of missing out come into play. I think the first one is missing out on a genuine connection. As humans, we do need connection. We do need that love and belongingness. I think that's very innate in us. But I think the second one is missing out on an expectation that you have, which is more about the social pressure. Like everyone is doing this, so I should also be doing this. So I think a simple way to kind of, handle this is to ask yourself, if social media didn't exist, would you still want this? Like, imagine all of this kind of disappeared. Like, would you have this expectation still? Like, do you feel lonely because you want genuine connection, or is it because you think you should have what others have? So I think
Hmm.
recognizing this difference takes the pressure off and lets you focus on what truly matters
And
to you.
it's back, if we go back and see the evolutionary aspect of it, it's so relevant, and it's so fair enough ki when you were in group you were very safe, and when you were not, were left out, and that was something which was a fear of, the survival part aspect of it. And if we, go ahead to think about what is loneliness actually, I would really like to hear your perspective of what is actually loneliness.
That's such a great question because I think, a lot of people kind of assume कि loneliness मतलब कि, you are a single person. So it is mainly associated कि, if you're a single person, that's what you experience. So yeah, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about loneliness is that it's just an emotion, like any other emotions, like happiness, feeling sad. But I think it is something that that can something some people think that it is something that we can just fix, but by just surrounding ourselves with people ki, just have a lot of people around you and loneliness is fixed. But I think loneliness is actually an evolutionary signal that that you were talking about evolution. So, when we think about it, back when humans lived in tribes, being alone was very dangerous. Ki you are alone, you will have not no protection, no support of anyone. So our brains kind of evolved to send a distress signal to our brain that when we feel disconnected. So basically saying that, hey, you need people around you. So that's why loneliness feels very uncomfortable because it's literally our brain um, saying that we need connection in this. So but here's the catch. I think the way we are living in the modern sphere, we don't have these tribes. I think we really moved on, but our brain is has not. So we still need, that physical proximity. So, today our connection has changed. Like we have online friendships, we
Hmm.
have supportive communities, we have, we can also have meaningful solo activities and we will be safe. But, and yet our brain still, sends that signal sometimes, that alarm that, oh, that makes us feel lonely. And, but like, how do we actually um, hack this alarm that our brain sends us? I think the first thing would be to recognize that loneliness is just a signal, take your back, take yourself back to this question that, okay, this is an alarm. This is not something that is wrong with me. And second thing is just focus on quality rather than quantity. So,
Hmm.
if you're having five deep conversation with someone, it is so much better than just 50 surface level ones, right? And also like to differentiate between what is a healthy solitude and what is actually emotional isolation.
When you also mentioned about, healthy solitude of being alone, but at the same time, not feeling lonely or emotionally isolated, but actually feeling content and feeling fine being with yourself. So, how would you, describe that healthy solitude?
Yeah, I think there's a big difference between being alone and feeling lonely.
Mm.
And I think if we talk about it, so think about it this way, that like imagine when you were, take back yourself back to that moment when you were, by yourself and you actually felt really peaceful. Like you were reading, maybe you were listening to music, you were, taking yourself to a quiet walk. So, that's solitude. It's a chosen state, it's a comfortable way of being with yourself. And we love it. We love solitude. But what is loneliness? Loneliness, on the other hand, is it feels like an absence of connection. It's more like something is not there.
Mm.
It's more than just being alone. It's about feeling unseen. You feel unheard. You feel disconnected emotionally, right? So I think the key to embracing the solitude that we have is to build a better relationship with yourself. So I think one of the best way to do that is through intentional self-reflection. I think that you can do this by journaling, right? You can write down about your day. Try having a conversation with yourself, right? Um, so yeah, I think by doing this, you're not just documenting your loneliness, but you're also understanding it. What brings this loneliness. Try to have prompts like that.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was just thinking about, this habit of journaling. Yeah, it has evolved, from just recording the day-to-day activities to actually uh, discovering what our day look like and what our emotions look like and what our thoughts and belief systems are. So, to discover more about our well-being, it's actually really important if we understand that if we are feeling this way, why I am feeling this way. It won't happen suddenly, like all of a sudden that I'm sitting down and writing about being lonely, and I would, I'll have that aha moment.
Yeah.
Okay, this is why I feel lonely and the reasons. So it is, I think, helpful when we have right prompts.
हाय एवरीवन आई एम सो सॉरी मैं कन्वर्सेशन के बीच में आ गई लेकिन हम जर्नलिंग के बारे में बात कर रहे थे तो आई हैड टू पीप इन टू शेयर विथ एवरी वन ऑफ यू दिस सेल्फ डिस्कवरी 15 days guided journal which is created by me. So this is a booklet which will help you to understand your personality more better. So अगर आप इसका content देखेंगे index देखेंगे, you'll find chapter related to understanding your strengths, self improve कैसे करें, understanding emotional intelligence. So it's a journal which has such prompts जो आपको help करेंगे आपके बारे में और ज़्यादा इन्फॉर्मेशन एनालाइज करने के लिए, लिखने के लिए. एंड इफ़ conscious journaling is something which you are looking for, or if you are a beginner and want to start journaling, this is your journal. And if you want a copy of it, just DM me on the number given below or shoot an email.
Full when we have right prompts,
Yeah.
as you were mentioning.
Yeah,
So,
I think,
mhm,
yeah, you can use prompts like, in first can be, in what situations do you really feel lonely?
mhm,
What are the triggers, that
mhm,
lead you to this loneliness? Is there anything you can do about it? Try to have like a conversation, not only just write, okay, oh, I feel lonely today, this happened today. Also try to find the solutions like as if you're talking to a friend, if your friend was in a similar situation, what kind of advices would you give? So also write, okay, maybe I can do this about this. I also, try to have a conversation with yourself. That's the important part of it, building a better relationship with
actually.
yourself.
So, moving on towards a person being in a relationship, but still having that feeling of loneliness. So, would you like to, shed a little bit light upon like why this might happen?
That's such a great question, I think, because a lot of people assume that loneliness is something only single people experience. But I've seen in my sessions and around me also that even people in relationships can still feel incredibly lonely. So I think that's actually different kind of struggle that we are talking about here, because it's actually harder to talk about it. I think the key difference is, I would say, is that when you're actually single and lonely, you're aware that you want this thing, that you want connection. You might feel like you're missing someone because you want to share experiences with them.
True.
But when you are, yeah, so but when you are in a relationship and you feel lonely, it means that you are emotionally disconnected from your partner. It's more emotional, and I think that's an even deeper kind of a pain if you think about it, because there's an expectation that having a partner should automatically make you feel less lonely. But in a way, loneliness, as we talked about it, but in a relationship, it can be more isolating, because if you start questioning it, the questions can be like, if I'm still feeling this way despite having someone, um what does that even what does that mean for my relationship?
Mm,
I think we need to question this if you're feeling lonely in a relationship. So I think the real takeaway here can be, loneliness is just like we talked about, it's not about the physical presence of someone. It's more about the emotional connection you have with that person. So on one hand, you can be single and feel, deeply connected or fulfilled, but
mhm.
or you can be in a relationship and feel empty. So I think it depends on the depth of connection and not just the relationship status that you have.
For the people who are cognitive and who can figure it out themselves and talk about it with their partners, it's really a great thing. But like uh, is there anything you can suggest, or a practical way to start the conversation, or how do you try to address this in the couple counseling sessions, talking about loneliness in the relationship?
Yeah, I think like if you are in a relationship but feeling lonely, it's often a sign that when you see that, as I talked, ki emotional connection needs to be nurtured. This thing of aspect of your relationship needs to be nurtured. So first, I would, one of the things I would say is to have open and honest communications and conversations with your partner. Not just about the daily tasks that you guys do, but also about the feelings, the fears that you have, the dreams that you guys, share, have that deep conversation. Also, what can help with that is, create an intentional moment of connection. So you actually have to, set some time aside for these deep conversations to happen. Um, have some, just even unplug from the distractions you have and talk about it. And and the last thing I would say is, have, practice emotional responsiveness, which is acknowledge each other's feelings rather than just brushing them off. Because I see this often that people, brush each other's emotional needs. So I think connection is something which we, see on social media. It's not about the grand gestures you are making, but I think it's more about being consistent with your partner and, have a good, meaningful engagement with them. So I think this is something that can help, foster that deep connection with your partner.
But since we talking about Indian population, so as you mentioned ki yeah, have a time for having a conversation with your partner on emotional level. तो most of the times हम देखते हैं कि it's really difficult to have such conversation about emotions and feelings and uh, in mostly if we look at it from a Indian population तो हमने जैसे मूवीज में भी देखा है कि if maybe someone is saying something, it was like the partner is laughing out, making sarcastic comment, and reels में भी हम लोग बहुत बार देखते हैं ये सारी चीजें. Just imagining a scene where a partner is saying कि okay, I'm feeling lonely, and uh, his partner is just laughing ki, what's wrong, everything is so perfect, and why are
Yeah.
you feeling lonely and those things. Not even why are you feeling lonely. Most of the time it's like it's in your head. It's
Yeah.
nothing, it's in your head. Don't think about it, you're overthinking. ये ऐसे रिमार्क्स और कमेंट्स मोस्टली हम देखते हैं. तो एक तो है कि वी कैन आस्क और अपील टू बी एम्पैथेटिक, वो भी एक है. और सेकंड एस्पेक्ट आई वुड लाइक यू टू शेड लाइट ऑन हाउ डू यू एड्रेस सच सिचुएशन इन रिलेशनशिप की. कैसे मोटिवेट करते हो आप कपल्स को टू एक्चुअली हैव conversation around emotional well-being.
Yeah. I think you mentioned, movies and reels. You don't see in movies couples actually sitting down and having a, meaningful conversation. That's something that we don't see, I think, mostly in Indian culture, that, communication is something that's been given that much importance to. So I think how I navigate it with my clients is, you know, is that, you just start with something small. Just have a low stake conversation. Ki, instead of diving into ke, acha, we just start having these deep emotions right away. Start with neutral topics, and generally just gradually introduce these feelings. Something I do suggest is use the I statements more. It's like express yourself without the blame of it. I feel unheard. This is something you have to practice. It is something I think we don't do, but it comes with time. So instead of you never listen to me, you can just start with I feel unheard. When you do this thing, and also just you can leverage that non-verbal communication. Sorry, that sometimes you can writing voice notes or even doing the shared activities together. So you can these things can help express emotions without that direct, words that feel difficult sometimes. We can see, and I think it's just very important that we also understand ki cultural conditioning here is in play. Ki I think it's very important to normalize that many of us was not raised when we talk openly about emotions. So it does take a lot of practice. So yeah, I think this is something that helps my clients.
Can say a wonderful suggestion, a wonderful quick hack to start being mindful about what words we are using and how are we framing our conversation instead of blaming ki you are doing this. Or I think ki, in Indian families, or maybe what we say that the culture we have, it's when it's about having conversation, most of the times like the fun element is the taunting and all those aspects of you know like that is really funny, and that is also one way of expressing the emotion. But another thing which goes ahead with it is being passive aggressive, showing the passive aggression. These are the
Yeah.
two funny thing which are very common. So
Hmm.
obviously, so I am saying this because most of the time it happens that I do those things and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. So it's not just about
Yeah,
others.
even I myself doing these.
Right. So thank you so much for this, reminder, quick tip for our viewers. So since we are at the end of our conversation, maybe anything you want to tell or anything you want to share apart from our conversation on loneliness.
Yeah, I think I would like to, share for my fellow single individuals is that I think, the key to create this meaning in your life is not tied to having romantic relationship. Even people in romantic relationship, this is something that can help you, is that, have a good connection with yourself. We talked about journaling. Something else that you can also do is build hobbies that kind of make you feel engaged, that you like doing, and strengthen all the other relationships that you have in your family, your friends, and just practice kind of some sort of a self expression. Because I think something that happens, I think, with a lot of people is that when they go to sleep, also tell me like if it happened to you, is that सारी चीजें रात में जब हम सोने जाने होते हैं, it just bombards us with, that's when our mind is kind of silent. So it's just a lot of things that you then, when the brain is silent, it's just like a lot of things coming through. Okay, this is not happening, this is not happening, this is not happening. And then you just like, okay, अब कैसे सोए? You have all of these questions. So I think this is very important कि थोड़ा सा we need a lot of थोड़ा brain को उस चीज को process करने के लिए एक अच्छा creative outlet होना चाहिए. You should practice these things of self expression या चीजों को लिखो. That's why your brain can process all of these emotions. Engage in art, music, anything that helps you connect with yourself. So I think at last, about loneliness, I would say that it is not a flaw, it is a human experience. And I think instead of just avoiding it, it's very good that we learn from it. What is it trying to like teach us? If even if you are single or in a relationship, understand what are your needs, and build a strong connection with yourself. That will always be the foundation of a meaningful relationship with yourself and others also.
Thank you so much for highlighting on how we can express, channelize the emotion in a form of art or any kind of hobby. Yeah. So yeah, that is a great gentle reminder that everyone needs, every one of us
Yeah.
needs. Even we mental health professionals also, tend to sometimes uh, tend to, distract from these aspects. Yes, it was a great conversation to have, Mitali, and loneliness is such a relatable topic, and you shedded light on very, like, most of the aspects of it. So, thank you so much for joining once again.
Thank you for inviting me. This was, very insightful even for me. And do try journaling and the prompts that we discussed. So, yeah, and I hope it helps you. And thank you for inviting me. It was really great talking to you.